Well, we're on the east side of London. We're about a mile or two from the City of London.
So we're at St Clements and this is London's first community land trust. I'm from London CLT and we exist to provide affordable housing in London.
London CLT was one of the pioneering organisations that helped set up the National CLT network and were one of our first members.
At St Clements we have 23 CLT homes and across the site there's 252 homes.
And in the end, London CLT's St Clements scheme developed housing actually using a mechanism through which most affordable housing in the UK is developed, just through the planning system, creating a need for a certain number of affordable units, which London CLT then took on.
The St Clements site has a really rich history and it was built in 1848 as a workhouse. Then it's had different iterations as a psychiatric hospital and it's been a derelict site.
And in fact we are in one of the few surviving compartmented spaces. This was a walled garden around the original infirmary. The NHS ran it as a hospital until 1959, when then it was turned into a psychiatric hospital. And it stayed that way until it closed in around about 2005.
So pre-Olympics, the London Mayor's Office asked London citizens, a local community organising body, whether they would support the Olympic bid. And before agreeing to support the Olympic bid, the community had a certain number of asks. So one of the promises from the Mayor's Office was that there would be a number of CLT homes. They wanted to see that the model worked, so St Clements was chosen as a flagship project or a pilot project to test the CLT model in an urban setting.
Well, once we had been selected as the preferred development team by the GLA, we were then obviously tasked with working out the designs for a residential-led regeneration of this old hospital and workhouse site.
So the key thing for the local authority is to know that we have really studied the historic nature and worked out what we think is most significant.
The whole site was actually listed. It has a curtilage listed designation, so every building, even the sort of from the 1960s, which were not particularly good quality buildings but were more put there for the use of the hospital. We had to sort of consider all of those. How do we get new build in? When we release land by demolishing buildings, what does that mean in terms of fitting in new buildings? What about the community open space that's required, the gardens, and also the connection from the main road at the front through to Cemetery Park here behind us, which at the time people described as a hidden gem.
So the idea behind the Community Land Trust is that it allows local residents the chance to stay in the areas that they grew up in and not be forced out by rising house prices.
The community land trusts are a way for local communities to take control of land, take it out of the market and put it to use for the benefit of the local community. They usually develop affordable housing on it, and they are, unlike most other forms of affordable housing provision in the UK, they're controlled by the local residents and in a democratic fashion.
It's really a way of working directly with the community and stakeholders from the beginning to co-design, co-create a vision and then take that on to become a plan, so that really communities are directly involved rather than planning something, designing something and then asking people what they think of it, which is what we call a design and defend process.
The building all these sites was always serving the community, the local community. So we had a working group which we were thinking about how the building can be used.
We find we get a lot of extra value, social, economic, environmental value by involving communities who have a great deal of local knowledge and a great deal of expertise within their community. And if we combine it with our professional expertise, then we find that always pays dividends.
The idea of allocating CLT homes is that we're allocating them to local residents with a deep connection in the area. And if you become a member of London CLT, you pay £1 and that's a nominal fee, and then you have the chance to vote and stand for election. So the idea is that we want our residents to really be involved in the governance of London CLT.
had like 2 small children, one was 4, one was just born, and we had to, and we became homeless basically on the paper. We lived in our flat for like 8 years, 10 years at the time, so it was emotionally was quite upsetting place, but also practically was we're in quite difficult situation. We were very lucky that I think 3 or 4 months after we find out about the eviction, we got this place.
So we have 5 areas of eligibility, and these are local connection. So we like to see that our residents have lived in the borough or worked in the borough for at least 5 years. There's housing need, so you might be being forced out of your current accommodation, you might have inadequate living situations, you might be overcrowded. There are a number of types of housing need. There's financial eligibility, so like I said, you have to be priced out but not able to be on the social housing list.
We would never afford buying our own place in London, despite being professionals and having good jobs. So we got quite excited about the idea that there is something like this, and we were quite keen to engage with the project.
Then there's local involvement, so not only should you be connected to the area for a number of years, but we also want to see a richness of connections, and also we want our residents to support the CLT value and missions.
In the UK, CLTs can take lots of different legal forms, so long as they comply with a definition that was put into law in 2008. The most common one now is something called a Community Benefit Society. It's a legal form that was updated in 2014 and really exactly matches the idea of a CLT, that it's an open membership organisation to anyone in a local community and exists for the benefit of that community.
The idea is that we support our residents throughout the process of them moving into a CLT home, and we get to know them and give them different opportunities to be involved in the area. So at St Clements there's been a campaign around a community space, the John Denham building. Through that campaign, residents have been involved in lobbying with the local politicians. They've collected sort of 300 survey responses from local residents, and I think the residents have really built up a relationship with each other through problem solving and having to go through this process.
I think the idea was like just a huge revelation, because that was, you know, with London reality, the only kind of way we thought affordable housing can be provided for people living here. And what CLT was offering was just truly affordable housing for people like us, people who work in public sector, who have salaries, but would never be able to afford buying our own place in London.